Peter Brissett, where you came from, Peter Brissett.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. No matter where life takes you, don't forget where you came from. You probably have heard a quote like that or similar to that as something to consider, to think about where we came from. And that's not an easy thing for me actually to do. I'm a very future focused person. I'm focused on the goals and the things that I want to accomplish. So looking back is not something that I very often do. In fact, I'll talk to some of my old friends and they'll say, hey, remember when we did this thing when we were kids? And I'll be like, no, I don't remember that at all. So I've in lots of ways, I've moved on from the past and focused on the future. But a couple weeks ago, I was with a friend of mine and I happened to be driving close to a couple places where I grew up. I don't know if you've ever done that, driven through the old neighborhood. And I went past a couple of the houses that I grew up in. And so I started thinking about these things. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that journey with you, because each of our journeys are very different. I think it's something we make a mistake and we forget. We think that people's path in life is the same as ours, and it's not. Some of us maybe grew up very poor. Some of us maybe grew up rich, or maybe just average. We don't really know that until we get to know somebody else to kind of find out where they came from. So a little bit of that background is we grew up in Brighton, Colorado. My parents bought a house there in Brighton, and then was a new neighborhood in the very small town of Brighton. Two younger sisters, older half brother, and for the most part was pretty happy home. But at some point my parents weren't getting along anymore. So they separated. I was about 10 years old when they separated and eventually divorced. So I and my sisters, my brother, my mom, we moved to a farmhouse out in Brighton, which was awesome. I loved that. It's out in the middle of the country. I chased down the farmers and ride on the tractors. It was great. A couple years later, though, we moved into Commerce City. And there's a lot of new places in Commerce City, but there's a lot of really old places in Commerce City. And I drove past one of the houses, the first house we moved to in Commerce City. And I don't know that I could say it's the ghetto, but it's very sketch as you look at it today. And it was back then. House on a corner in a very industrial area. Previously, the house had been converted to a massage parlor. And it was not unusual to get a knock late at night on the door thinking it was still a massage parlor. The second house we moved into, which we weren't there very long, I don't remember how long, but not very long, thankfully, was a few blocks away in a little bit nicer neighborhood on Cherry Street. And at that point in time, we were poor. Like, we were poor. My mom had come to us at that moment and said, we're not having Christmas this year. We don't have any money. There's not going to be any gifts. But I remember a friend of the family, Mr. Schair, showing up on Christmas Eve. And Mr. Schair was not a wealthy man by any means. But we had bicycles and gifts and things that he managed to pull together. They weren't brand new bikes. I don't know where he got them. But we at least had some kind of Christmas there. That was kind of how things were going for us at that point in time. For all intents and purposes, we were very poor. And of course, then you don't really think about that or compare that or really wonder what that looks like. But a number of months ago, I had the opportunity to meet with one of the Adams County commissioners. And in preparing for that meeting, it was just really a cup of coffee to kind of see how I can, help out this county commissioner. as a citizen and, get to know her, and she wanted to get to know me. But I began to really think about growing up in Adams County, and that we did grow up incredibly poor. If there was a government program that could help us, we used it. We had food stamps. We ate government cheese. We had government health care. We had help with our housing. Like, we would not have survived at that point in time in our lives without that help. My first job that I had was working for Adams County Summer Youth Program. And it was a great experience, a chance to actually work and get a paycheck, which is something that I've done ever since then. And I think about today, where am I at today? Well, I still live in Adams County. Now, I've lived all over the place. I've lived all through the Southwest, but today I live in Adams County. I own a business now in Adams County. And some of the things that I'm able to be connected with and do for me seems pretty remarkable. So one of the things is I'm a marketing consultant through the Small Business Development Center, which covers Adams County. I'm the vice chairman of the board for the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, Adams County. I'm a member of the Adams County Workforce Development Board, directly working with Adams County. I was that kid riding my bike on the streets in Brighton. I don't say those things to brag. I say them to go, that's a contrast, that's a difference. So where have you come from? What are some of the obstacles that you've overcome? It might not have been years ago. It might have been last week, something that you have accomplished. So I do think sometimes it's okay to look back and appreciate how far we've come. Then perhaps the quote will have some meaning for you. No matter where life takes you, don't forget where you came from. Madam Toastmaster.